Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this second episode of our Fireside Chats with the founders of Thai Boston. Today, we bring you not one, not two, but three founders all together in one frame. And thank you, Mr. Rahul Singh, Mr. Ramesh Kapur, and Dr. Dinesh Patel for joining us today. There are many people out there who want to hear how this all started. 25 years back, in February was when Thai Boston started. And today we'll get to hear the story of how everything just happened and how we got to where we are today. With that, I'm going to hand it over to our moderator for the evening, Priya Samath. Priya is a charter member. Priya, thank you for doing this. I'll let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Anu. It's a pleasure to be here, and good evening, everyone. Entrepreneurship is a novel undertaking through which creative ideas are executed. 12 visionaries came together in 1997 to form Thai Boston. Today, I have the honor to be in the company of three of them: Mr. Rahul Singh, board member of Beacon Hill Resources; Mr. Ramesh Kapur, president at Medical Technical Gases Incorporated and president of US-India Security Council; and Dr. Dinesh Patel, a doctor, an entrepreneur, and a pioneer in the field of medicine. I would like to open today's conversation with Mr. Rahul Singh. Rahul, you moved from Silicon Valley to Boston. You were the spark that led to the formation of Thai Boston chapter. What was your motivation to start the chapter?
Thank you for the question, Priya. Actually, just a little correction. I was based in Boston, but I was doing a lot of investment banking in Silicon Valley in the early days, 92, 93, and was fortunate enough to run across a number of Indian entrepreneurs in the Valley who were very, very competent. And one particular person who at one point was number 3 at IBM, had taken Lexmark public, which was part of IBM, was a man called Kailash Joshi. So Kailash Joshi and Ajay Patel had got together to look at the vision of how they could bring disparate parts of the Indian community together, because, you know, Gujaratis mixed with each other, Maharashtrians, Punjabis. So their vision was actually to see what was something which would be a unifying force. And they identified, essentially, when we all got together, the fact that entrepreneurship is a key factor that could possibly bring people together. Remember, at that time, it was a hypothesis. And when it started to flourish in the Valley, I was fortunate to meet my colleagues, which was Ramesh and Dinesh. And the idea was to bring this across to Boston. And we got together to put the framework which would bring it across to Boston. The second objective, and I was fortunate enough to talk to Kailash this morning, and he reminded me the second objective. So the first one was to try and get the communities together, and the common theme being entrepreneurship. But the second thing was there was hope that everyone who was a South Asian entrepreneur and an American entrepreneur would also join the organization. So its whole basis was highly egalitarian. It was intended to be ubiquitous. And it is still, the most welcoming entrepreneurship organization. Obviously, the latter part is to a degree a work in progress. And hopefully over the next 10, 15 years, that will also change, seeing the unbelievable work that everyone's done and trying to bring it to where it is now. So hopefully that's guidance to you.
Yeah, absolutely. As they say, entrepreneurship speaks all kinds of languages.
Right.
And, I am a new, I just became a Thai charter member in this year. So right. I totally agree with what you said. So Ramesh Kapur, so Ramesh, the next question is to you. What is that made you subscribe to support this cause?
Well, my reasoning was, I come from a business family, okay, about 17, 18 generations back. We can trace it. We've always been in business. So business was always part of it. But my goal was, I think the second year after Silicon Valley started, I visited Silicon Valley. And there were about 500 Daces who put in $450 to attend the seminar. And now, Daces don't shell out that kind of money, and 500 of them at a time, all right? And I said, wow, this organization is going to take off. So that's where, I met Rahul in the Silicon Valley. And so my reason was, see, we already had a different organization in Boston. Already we had that had brought the whole community together. Cultural part was there. Then the political part, Indian American Forum was started. Dinesh and myself, we started the chapter over here. So so that community was already together, okay? And I feel that's one of the reasons Thai Boston took off because of the organizations that Boston already had. And of course, Thai was more of an IT organization, and it was the right time for IT to take over, was moving in United States. And that was my reason, was I was looking for purely a way of getting the Indian community together politically. That's all my goal was. And business was one of the ways to bring it together. So my goal was more to give the community access on the political level at the highest level, to be on the table, to get top positions. And and you can see we have the vice president now who's Indian American. So we have achieved the goals that I had set out. To my thing, Thai was more of one of the organizations that will bring our community together more than, instead of Thai bringing the community together, I felt that the community, Thai would be one part of the community, and it's successful. It's a great organization, very successful. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So, Dr. Patel, during the early days of Thai, there were very few people from the medical field in the entrepreneurship space. How and why did you decide to join the band of entrepreneurs?
Well, let me at the outset thank Anu and all of you for organizing this 25th year celebration. So much talent floating at the grassroots and all over. So you deserve our sincere thanks for organizing this. I joined because Ramesh and we are very close friends. So we talking about it, and I thought to myself that the people are always thinking about entrepreneurship is simply wealth creation. So I remember Indus means Indus related activity, reminded me of nothing else than what I call Samudra Manthan. Remember Samudra Manthan? Samudra Manthan, thousands and thousands years ago, was done to get something out of ocean, some wealth out of ocean, So I thought to myself, here is a wonderful opportunity to get. What do we get? Every human being has an inner divinity. There is no human being infinite creator hasn't given. We need to get that unmanifested divinity out of people. So Ramesh and Rahul will agree with me. Initially, we are all talking about IT. So I said no. Ramesh said no. Rahul says no. We want to get people from all divinity. We want to unmanifest, unscrew the hidden divinity out of these. And what an opportunity for me, and I don't want to boast it, but we created something which is unique in the healthcare, which is now banging the door of every human being. So that's one of the reasons I joined, apart from being friendship, and also the thing we know that everyone will cross the ocean from India, $10, $20, $20. They're all entrepreneurs. One is a janitor, one is a hotelier, one is a businessman, one created billions of dollars, one created idea to IPO, one fails. But we all have it. So here is an organization, I thought, with the help from Ramesh, Rahul, Samir, Desh, and all 13 members, we can unscrew the hidden divinity. We can unscrew the unmanifested divinity and make it better. And let us be proud of it, so it will be a common good for society at large. So that is what I joined. So I want to thank Rahul and Ramesh, because I didn't have any gold coins, I got lost in the gold coin organization. But I thought it's a wonderful opportunity, and the things I'll tell you, I'll give you one more extra minute. So the first global meeting took place in Hawaii. Me and my wife were there in the line. Would you be surprised? Everyone asking me, how many IPO? How many IPO? And my wife and said, Christ's sake, where did we come from? Well, I mean, yeah. So idea is to create, unscrew, bring the divinity out of the marketplace. And this is happening. Anu, thank you for organizing this celebration, because it further bringing those unmanifested divinity, like what you're doing for Thai high school kids, Thai college kids, Thai this, Thai this, Thai this. It is unscrewing the unmanifested divinity. So I'm quite proud and happy that Ramesh, you are the guy who got me involved with Rahul, and I'm enjoying it myself. Yeah, thank you.
So, such a well put answer, Doctor. So, I'll just continue with you. So after an illustrious career, you are now involved with the Lexington Council and other such endeavors. Can you please shed some light on the various initiatives you are advancing?
Well, the most important initiatives, as Ramesh and we talked about in 1984, that we want to be part of the society. We want to be part and parcel of civility of town, state, to the federal government. So we did with the federal government with Ramesh, we did the state government with Ramesh. Ramesh has been extremely successful in getting us involved in civic processes. So I thought I might do it in the town. So we're getting involved in the town, what I call exciting our youngsters to get in the town, not just the politics. I think we're talking about giving way, either in the schools, or talk about issues related to marijuana, or issues related to any number of things. I'm just one of them. And I must tell you one thing, which is you may or may not know. This is the only town in the history of the world that we have out of 26 town members, half of them are women. And all of these women, they come from north to south to east of India. And it's a diversity in unity, unity in diversity. And our leader is Vanita Kumar, you know that. So I think the goal is to be inspired by being part of the town. It may be tough for you to break through the barriers, but we are breaking the barrier to participate in the town activities. So thank you for asking me. We still have a long way to go, but good enough. Half of the Indian American town members are our women. Broken glass ceiling, they're all excellent, they're all academic thing, they're all very smart of the smarts, and like Anu and Priya and Rowena, they're all breaking the glass ceilings. So we are quite proud of the fact that the future generation will look upon these a unique thing which got started. And thanks to Ramesh. Ramesh is the guy who got me involved in some manner or the other, from state to federal government to the local government. So thank you, Priya. I wish I could say more, but it's sort of more than plenty, I think. Yeah.
So Ramesh, given where you're today, where we are today, people have varied interests. You have pivoted from being an entrepreneur to an active figure in the political arena. You know, as a doctor mentioned, tell us something about the key accomplishments in that area. Our audience would really love to hear more about it.
Well, Dinesh is on a modest person, okay? I am because of Dinesh. I want you to know that. With the first fundraiser I did in 1980 for Mike Dukakis, nobody knew who Ramesh Kapur was, all right, at that time. And when I did the first fundraiser, all right, it's because of Dinesh Patel that fundraiser was successful, all right. He talked to the whole community. Everybody respected him at that time also. And that's where the fundraiser was. So my wife sometimes says maybe she should blame Dinesh Patel for what got me into politics. But just a little history about Thai. Initially when we started, we wanted to see who the president would be. The first president was critical to have the right president for it to take off, and we felt that Desh would be the ideal one. And Desh had just sold his company Cascade, and was in between Cascade and Sycamore. So we really had to, because he wasn't really active in the community. We really had to get him to convince him to take the presidency at that time. And twice we flew down. I joined him in Silicon Valley, where the folks from Silicon Valley talked to him why it was important, because his son was going to Stanford, not college, but high school there. But he was going to taking college courses, and we were able to convince. And those are the key things that you make decisions at that time, and you make sure that you don't have the ego enough. And Rahul, Dinesh, myself didn't have the ego to say we were going to be the first president. All right, it wouldn't have taken off. It really wouldn't have taken off. So the name brand like that was one that really the Thai took off, and after that is history. Everybody did a great job, but the initial was important. But going back to the key thing, the key thing on in politics or whatever it is, that you got to be intellectually honest about things. Okay, if you are honest who the right person is and the right attitude that you have, and not the ego that takes over personalities, I think it will be successful. And if anything, as to my success, I have never really taken any position. I've been offered awards and I've been offered positions, but I always felt the day I took the award and everything is the day where the community would think that I was doing it just for myself. And I just want to give my dad the credit, because that's where the community spirit that we got. He was in Lahore, I was born in Bombay, and he did a lot of communities. When all the refugees came to Bombay, he put out all the langars, the food, and that's where I get the community spirit. And more of the entrepreneurship I get from my mother. Okay, she's the Republican, my dad was the Democrat, and that's where I get. And that's basically it. It started the first success, and then if you're persistent enough, and if you have the staying power, you'll be successful. You learn as you go along. I learned the players. I learned, but my key success has always been my community. That has always given my excitement, whether it's Thai, whether it's forum, whatever it is. It's the Indian American community is my excitement. I've been offered DNC positions, business council, and and could be the chair of the DNC. I never wanted it. Okay, I wanted my community over here, U.S.-India relationship, and that's what my goal was. And if you are focused that way, and you know what you want, and you're focused, and you have the staying power, you will learn, and you will be successful. And I've learned, politics, American politics, where I've advised Prime Ministers Rajiv Gandhi on a one-to-one basis, trying to explain them the intricacies of how American politics works. All right. They go back and they forget again. Okay, go back to the old. And it's a constant struggle on both sides. The American side also, and you'll be surprised how they just don't understand India. India doesn't understand United States. United States still doesn't understand India, and that's why the situation that we are in at the present time, when each side has really not and they're still not understanding. So it's a constant process of educating. So all these things are. I get my satisfaction is when the Indian community writes a check when I ask them to do. And that's where the respect comes in. When somebody can say no to you, okay? Or investment, if you're putting investment in Thai in your project or whatever it is, if the guy can say no to you and invest in your company, that's when the commitment comes in. So, basically, it's my community that gives me the most high that I have. And I've been doing that since 1980. And that's what I am. And fortunately, I have folks like Dinesh Patel and others that are there who've been active nationally. And now look at more congressmen, more senators, more everything are running. We might be a future president. Kamala Harris could be a future president. And also Ro Khanna might be a future president. He's presidential material. And that's when we feel that we have arrived, is when we have achieved that. Now also, remember, politics is important because you're working so hard to make this money. Thai is making all this money, all right? You want to make sure that it is taxed correctly. You want to make sure that it is not abused, all right? You're working hard for that money. That's why my recommendation to all the Thai charter members, all the Thai members, get involved politically, because it's important that you keep your wealth. Or believe me, politicians will, if they have their option, they will give away the wealth, they'll waste the wealth.
So, Rahul, after several years away, we're back in Boston. What are the various projects and initiatives that you have been involved in?
Well, the first one clearly is, don't you think Ramesh is better than Camilla?
I guess he's Republican, right?
I'd never take any sides. I don't think it's when you do business. But anyway, I just want to say a few things. My personal interests, and which have always been, as a family, also as my mother and father, we were always very, great patrons of the arts. So, we enjoy supporting, artists and musicians, and we do that till today. So that's a big love for us. I just want to add a couple of things, not to digress from your question too much on what Ramesh said, because it just reminded me of the integration between what all of us were doing in those early years. There's no question that I don't think Thai Boston would be what it is with energy and the impetus of Desh. But it all led we can give many examples. The example I want to give, I think, was a very live one, because I had a man who's head of NASCOM, a guy called Taban Mehta. He was on my advisory board. Ramesh had helped organize several very high-level contacts within India. Desh was also on that soiree that we went to India. We actually ended up, I think, on the cover of India Today and various other things. But one of the most value-added contributions as a team that we did was there was a meeting which many people don't know, and they should know about it, is there was a meeting with Prime Minister Vajpayee, which we all attended. and at that time, it was very hard to get a landline. If you remember, in India, it can take sometimes several years to get a landline. And the telecom department there basically wanted to ensure that it didn't lose control of that whole space. And through the smartness of the team had already identified the fact that mobile was coming in and coming in fast. And if the bureaucrats did not control mobile, that would become ubiquitous within India. And one can debate the extent of that meeting, but I think that meeting was very influential on the Prime Minister. And I think overall, I would say not as individuals, but as TIE, and combining what also Ramesh is saying in terms of being a little more hands-on when it comes to business on the political side, that TIE had an influence on ensuring that India, no matter what modicum of level it is, had no rules in relation to mobile. Pramod Mahajan was the telecom minister at that time. He's a very, very smart man, and he would always say roti, kapda, makan, or bandwidth, and it was taken up in earnest, and clearly Desh was also instrumental because being a well-known personality in his own right. What interests me today also is various forms of entrepreneurship, which are of course taking place, and I pick and choose what I want. But at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is to have fun. So if you're an entrepreneur and you hook onto something, don't do it just because it potentially is going to make you money or whatever. Take it on if your colleagues and whatever the value proposition is going to make you have a lot of fun, because life is very short, and you won't do well if you don't have fun. Thank you.
There is a very famous Hindi saying, "Zindagi na milegi dobara." So you have fun.
Yeah.
Life is very short. So I'm going to ask a common question to all three of you, and anyone can pick it up. We all celebrate success, but failures are the stepping stone on the road to success and for shaping who we become as human beings. So what are the top 3 mistakes you have made in your entrepreneurial journey? So Rahul, do you want to take this?
I think let Ramesh start first, because he founded MedTech.
Okay. So
I love it, Rahul. Okay. I think failures are the ones that will make you successful, right? It's always the failures that will decide whether and really real failures can really get you. And my first failure was my first partner, right? And I won't get into who it was, but it affected me, okay, a lot. And that was, I think, the key to my success with the first failure that I had. And you have to have failure to the point where you say, you have 3 options. Either you have a nervous breakdown, right? Or you kill yourself, all right? Or you get up and you become stronger. And that's the key to success. So you have to experience that low point in your life to get that fire in your belly, okay? That desire that you have. And the success comes in is that the fear of failure psychologically that you have. Yes, you're going to have fun and everything, but that is the biggest motivator of any success, is the fear of failure, all right? So that's part of it. And of course, the second failure wasn't my part of it. Is on the And I mean, you have some setbacks here and there in business, okay? As long as you are 51% on the right side, you're still ahead, all right? And there's been a few minor decisions that you make, but fortunately, I think my failures have failure has been just the first one, and after that, you learn to be a strategic thinker. Okay, you always make sure you have an A, B, C plan. All right, if A doesn't work, you got a B plan and you have a C plan. And as long as you have in business A, B, C plan, you will never have a real failure. But you've got to experience that real mental meltdown, failure, to have the fire in the belly. And I chose politics to bring my community to a different level. If I would have chosen business, and I would be at a different level, because I know the person who started in my business. I started in 81, he started in 84. He sold the same business. He expanded nationally and everything. And he sold it for $8 billion. And his share was about $1 billion. Started after me, same business, everything. So I made that choice of my success would be on the political level, to bring it at the highest level. And I think my suggestion to all Thai Charter members and all the other members is that keep a certain percentage aside. Okay, maybe you don't have to do what Dinesh did, and I did across the time that we spend in community and other areas, charities and other things. But take 10% off your yearly income, set it aside. It will give you more satisfaction than making another $10 million or $5 million, or thinking about how much IPOs you have done, how much exit strategy that you have. But going back to the failure part, the real ultimate failure entrepreneur has to experience. And Desh has experienced. He has filed chapter bankruptcy. Okay, I don't know, once at least I know. So that is the failure that you have. And then after that is you got to be stupid not to keep making the same mistakes. All right, because you got to learn. And as I said, that always have an ABC plan, whether it's politics, whether it's family. And I tell my friends that I've been married 48 years and I'm selling my wife every day. All right. I don't take anything for granted. Okay. Don't take anything for granted. And as I said, 48 years, I know Susan for 50 years, 2 years I dated her, and I'm selling every day. Oh, that's what my recommendation is. So failures is where you learn from. All right.
Thank you so much.
So do you want me?
Yeah.
Let me answer your question in several ways. I think I remember one of the dissertations, and there are several important dissertations that I'm sure people have learned from Desh. I think the one that really sticks with me is it said every ball can bounce back.
Mm.
And the only ball that is a crystal ball, which can break, is your relationship or your marriage. And I took it to be a little broader than that, in the sense of not just your relationship or marriage, but could be many other things, which includes your colleagues. And when you look back, there are certain stages where there are levels of friendship and discourse with different people that you regret. But I think he having summed that up that way was, I think, quite an influential thing for me. The second thing I think, which is very important, which I actually learned from Ned Johnson, who founded Fidelity. And occasionally when we would have lunch, he actually, in 82 Devonshire Street, he he actually had an office which was influenced by Zen Buddhism. And one of his major concepts was that a human being ought to reinvent themselves every year. And what he would do is he would go out of his way to try and remove inertia within an organization and reinvent it. And that included, very importantly, the IT. In those days, when you talk to various corporations, the corporation which had at the highest level the category of strategic positioning and thought was Fidelity. And they were spending in the mid-90s, they were spending $500 million a year on technology. It was an awful lot of money. And he was pointing out the importance of that. And that was very influential to me because I'd come down the pathway of more traditional corporations. It really had an impact. And a lot of the things that we see today in terms of wealth management, various other things, all emanated from him. He was the first man to market mutual funds and list them in the Wall Street Journal. And those things were really to think out of the box. I think your relationships with your friends also are very, very important. And often it's very important to keep them separate from your business relationships. The amount of times that I've seen entrepreneurs actually have friends and family fully invest in their company and then deeply regret it because it ruins their relationship. I think that people should take kind of note of that. One of the most important things in today's environment, as distinct from the 90s, capital was only available in a de minimis way. And what was called alternative capital, which was basically venture capital, because forms of private equity became more sophisticated later on, were today's roughly 17 to 20% of the capital markets today. Back in those days, it was about 3%. So venture capitalists would market themselves by saying to entrepreneurs, look, we can add value, we've got the money, we've got the expertise in-house, and we've got the network amongst the service providers. Well, think about the mentality of an Indian entrepreneur. Most Indian entrepreneurs want to own 51% of their own company. And why shouldn't they? We've seen that happen with Warren Buffett, with Elon Musk, and many well-known entrepreneurs who are not necessarily Indians. Why is it that a venture capitalist will curtail necessarily your ownership within a particular company? So today, if I said something to entrepreneurs is capital is a commodity. It's not unavailable. It is readily available. Even if rates go from where they are today, another 200 basis points, they're readily available. All the major institutions, all the major corporations are dying to deploy that capital. So don't be influenced by anyone who says to you, well, look, we're bringing just capital to the table. The second thing is be very careful, and this is a mistake often made by entrepreneurs, be very careful how you speak to the venture capitalists. One of the key things back starting in the 90s was venture capitalists refused to sign an NDA. Now that meant when you shared your idea with the venture capitalists already had a team which was ready to take your idea and implement it with his own team, right? So you've got to be a lot more astute today, because if you feel uncomfortable with a VC or private equity person, move on. Don't stay with them, because there's plenty of capital out there. So that's the second thing I would say. Third thing I would say is, the availability of service providers is a commodity, whether they're good lawyers, they're good accountants, etc. And this is where TIE is a great organization, because you can talk to your fellow entrepreneurs and ask them, who's the best IP lawyer doing? Who do I go to, et cetera, et cetera. So that's another thing that happened in the 90s. Many of the venture capitalist firms would continually, not want IP to be lodged by anyone. They would say, oh, why do we lodge IP on software? Because that, at the end of the day, technology moves so fast. Well, we have seen several instances where IP was lodged, technology was lodged in software, and those companies have gone on to protect themselves very well. So I think do it with wisdom. and do it with great confidence, because unlike in the 90s, the friendships and the network in Thai is much stronger than it was back in the 90s. That do not take something where you feel uncomfortable with the VC, just leave the table and go on to the next person, because there are many VCs and private equities down the road. There are plenty of brands down the road. And be very careful about protecting your IP. And there's definitely vast room for an average entrepreneur when they exit an investment to have more than 7 or 8% of the company, which was the normal formula back in the early days, right? So if you want to own 51% of the company, there's a whole set of family offices. And they are huge, they're massive, capital available. So that would be.
So Dr. Anything from you?
I have a different thinking than Rahul is saying it. I don't think wealth creation is the basic concept of entrepreneurship. I think churning the ocean, getting the unmanifested divinity from everyone to excel is what I think is most important. Let me give you, the failure is possible only if you're dreaming. You dream for excellence, then you're certainly going to fail. Many times people have come to ask me at MGH and say, gee, how did you get residency? I say, I went from India to Bombay to Burlington to Baltimore to Boston. 4 years. 4 years of internship residency till I got the residency at MGH in Harvard. I say, are you willing to accept these? So failures is possible, but what you have to think about your dream of excellence. I had a dream to come to MGH in Harvard and create something that I would be very proud of it. Failure is possible. When I started my medical devices, and Ramesh knows it, I had been rejected by Johnson & Johnson, rejected by many companies. But I persisted because I thought it's possible to create it. And had to ego trip, or might as well ego trip, and say that mine was the first medical devices company in the entire world, specifically for arthroscopic surgery. And believe it or not, this is the most common operation in the world. So I think you fail, but if you create excellence, if you think that you're going to make a difference, you can fail, doesn't matter. Fail, go next step, and next step, and next step, and do it. So I think don't get disheartened by failures. Failure is a way of life. The car fails, the tire ruptures, you put the new tire and keep going. So that is what I think, and once again I need to compliment Thai because they have started all the multiple disciplines in teaching and training and advising and guiding and whatever, to extract things from everyone to make a difference. I forgot to mention, I think Ramesh and Rahul will agree with me, we also need to thank Samir because he really let us use his office for quite a while. And then all the 13 charter members working like a great family. And I can emphasize again that there was a great family union. Each one talks, and a family, and it grew. So thank you, Ramesh, and thank you, Rahul, for getting me in, and thank you, Anu, Priya, and Anish, and all for calling me in for this 25th years of celebration. It's just a wonderful thing, wonderful feeling. At least I got to meet Ramesh and Rahul. We don't meet during the COVID Queen's time, yeah.
So I would now like to pass it over to Archish for audience questions because, I'm pretty sure audience want to talk to our speakers.
Priya, can I just say one thing is that mistakes are made. Don't dwell on the mistakes, learn by it and move on. The problem comes is that if you are so hung up on the mistake, all right, look at Dinesh. Dinesh could have I'm going to patented those tools that he's talking about, right? He could have patented, and he would be a multi-billionaire now, okay? But he doesn't dwell on it, okay? Because he's got enough respect for what he has done internationally. And that's the key thing to entrepreneurship, is that move on. Don't dwell on your mistakes, okay? Whatever they are, right? Learn from it.
My cousin is an orthopedic surgeon, a very well-known orthopedic surgeon in Mumbai. And when he knew that I was going to be talking to Dr. Patel, he was like over the moon.
I know. You know, I was in Colorado for an event over there, a political event. So the guy's surgery was right next to me. So I said, "What do you do?" You know, he said, "I'm an orthopedic." Arthroscopic surgeon. He said, "Really?" I said, "Do you know my friend, Dr. Dinesh Patel?" He lit up, okay? He said, do you know that there's a whole procedure named after him? There's a whole procedure called Patel's hole in the arthroscopy surgery, okay? So forget about the copyright, okay? I mean, the patent on the damn tools. His name is going to be there for legacy. And if he had all the money, his kids and his grandkids would fight for his money. Okay.
Oh, God, I mean, that's enough.
Okay. So go ahead, the question and answers. All right. Okay. He's my mentor. Okay. If anybody is going to reach moksha, okay, it's going to be my friend, Dr. Dinesh Patel. Okay. I want you to know that. All right.
So Archie, over to you.
Yeah, great. No, thank you so much for such an insightful discussion. And to kick us off, I'll just read a comment from a Thai Silicon Valley charter member, Yogi Chug, says, thoroughly enjoying listening to this session. Tremendous respect for Dr. Patel and Ramesh Kapur for what they have accomplished over so many years. Many of us have been inspired by their trailblazing work for the last 30 years. So that's from Yogi Chug. And they ask a question. Many say that the CXO suite can be the loneliest place in the world. Do you agree? And any advice for executives or entrepreneurs that you can provide? So any of you who want to answer this?
CXO suite.
Yeah.
Could get it. Could you say it again? I got confused. What could you ask again?
Yeah. So the question is, many people say that, you know, the positions of CXO level, like the top positions in the business world, can be a lonely place. Do you agree? And any advice for executives or entrepreneurs that you can provide?
Yeah, Rahul would love to take it first.
So, you know, my comment, having worked with some great CEOs, is corporations are not democracies. So they have to make decisions often which are in the interests of shareholders. But the question is, what interests today in a modern corporation? CEOs now are bound by several obligations. The most recent one, when I say recent one, the last few years, which clearly, you know, the regulators now are enshrining it, is called ESG, Environment, Social, and Governance. Now, half of the board members don't even know what that really means, and neither does a CEO. However, insurance companies are turning around and saying, we will not give you directors insurance, we will not give you this, that, and the other. And so all of a sudden, a corporation is set adrift. So it's very important for a CEO to understand who the stakeholders are. It's the board, it's the customer, you know, it's your employees, it's your shareholders, and now matters such as ESG. So a CEO has to continually actually train themselves. It's not just the employee who has to go on for ongoing training, but actually the CEO has to go on for ongoing training in a modern corporation and how to run it in a modern way. Be very familiar. A lot of entrepreneurs, technology entrepreneurs, wouldn't have even heard of things like audit committees and various things. So if the sooner they can really understand those things, the sooner they'll be able to scale that company. Now, I'll tell you another reason why it's important. One of the arguments which is always used by private equity and VC guys when they have an entrepreneur working with them is that the entrepreneur is not familiar how to scale a company. They don't really understand how to take a company public, or they don't understand how to actually exit a particular company. It's very unfair on the entrepreneur because the entrepreneur, of course, put their heart and blood and soul into that. So the sooner an entrepreneur who starts a corporation heads down this route and takes a holistic attitude of what makes a great CEO, what does it take besides technology, besides actually getting on with your team members, besides product development, besides marketing, the more support that they will get in the financial markets, in the capital markets, in one form. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for the answer. Another question is from Sandeep Narwani. His question is for Dr. Patel. How do you deal with failures made by external factors impacting your professional growth?
Well, I think you have to accept the fact that not all the external factors may be wrong. You have to figure out what are those external factors. Look and search your own soul to begin with. See, is there anything you did which created these external factors to impact you? Certainly there are external factors in getting promotion at the hospital, getting privilege at the hospital, getting research grant from federal government, or not being respected based on your excellence. If you constantly harbor on those things, they are not going to move forward, like Ramesh is saying it. Ramesh being classic example. He would be told by many people, Ramesh, no thank you, no thank you, no thank you. These are external factors. But he understands that he may be able to break through, and those external factors then can become part of your own factors. But I think don't go for tit for tat. Go for respect and love for the hate. Then you can break through. I think I give you my simple example. I tell everyone, if you are willing to work every other night for 10 years, till you graduated, till you got on a staff, then you have every opportunity. And during those times, you're certainly going to have problems, external factor. I think you need to individualize the external factors. Tell them, don't disappointed. See, like Gita says, if you don't like those manifested bad things, then change it. Go into the better things. Ignore them, move forward. But don't burn your bridges by constantly thinking about external. It doesn't work here. Hopefully I provided a good answer here.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Patel. That was a great answer. I have another question from Arshan Basu. Please tell us about your philanthropic or business contributions to India. Anyone who would like to take it?
Let me take it.
Ramesh,
The biggest business contribution I can make is to teach and train orthopedic surgeons in India, educate them so they can take care of the people well, they can reduce the disability, they can provide a function faster, and they can get those business people go back to business faster, as well as open up opportunity for businesses in healthcare sector. Way back, you may not know, but this great guy, Kapil Dev, got to, he had a bad knee, after open surgery, fixed up his knee. So that created businesses. People begin to realize that here is an opportunity for doing things, the less invasive surgery, arthroscopic surgery. So now there are many companies in India, many orthopedic devices in India to do this. As a matter of fact, I ran a conference for federal Indian government on medical devices. an opportunity for India to do like what they in the software industry. So a big conference, about 500 people came to Delhi and ran a conference and telling them medical devices is the next best thing to software industry in India. So here is a possibility for people to improve their businesses in different sectors. Just like, for example, Ramesh's industry in the medtech cases, or in the healthcare industry, what he's doing it, or Rahul may be doing something else. There are many people doing. So there is an opportunity for extending these Thai successes into India, and I'm sure it's happening.
Arish, I think it's important that Ramesh talks here because of his longevity in terms of several contributions. You know, I've been involved in the periphery with some of the things he's done, which includes the nuclear treaty that he instrumentally helped between the United States and India. So, Ramesh, I think you should answer some of that questions.
Well, in terms of businesses, what I have found, I always say, if you do the right thing at the right time, everything will fall in line. And if you want to look at anything, look at the bigger picture. Okay, go for the home runs. And that's what I have done, is try to worked on it, change the policy that nobody else has done. Okay, civil nuclear deal. We were able to convince 86% of the Democrats to vote for the civil nuclear deal. Now, once that law was changed, then a lot of businesses opened up to India. They had access to uranium. They got access to other businesses that were there. So my way of doing it in India is to change the policy of United States, all right? And then there will be a trickle-down effect in terms of businesses in India. And once you open that sector, all right, try to push, there is bureaucracies in India that is tough out there. But one thing about India is that once you understand the bureaucracy of India, you will always make money in India for a long time. Okay, so if you have a staying power, which is the key to success, if you're going to stick it out, staying power that you have, which I mentioned earlier, you can make a lot of money in India. All right, everybody has made money in India, but my way of contributing in terms of opening a business and everything is by changing the policy on the macro level. And once that has, civil nuclear deal, I think there are certain things that I'm proud of myself, and that was one of them. And now we are trying to do other things by getting India to be classified at NATO +6. Now it's NATO +5. And if I was successful, we would not be in this situation where India has to question whether maybe that might be one of my failures that you asked me earlier about. For 5 years, we've been trying to get NATO +6 with Japan, Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, Israel. We want India to be the 6th country. And if we would have got that passed, if I would have convinced, believe me, I tried, convinced the American side that it was the right thing to do. And if India was part of the NATO 6, I think this call by the Biden trying to talk to Modi would not have to happen. Okay, India would have seen that they can count on United States and on a critical time when they need the support with the problem with China. They don't feel that they can count on United States because we couldn't deliver. And this is Clinton, this was, Trump also, and Obama also wasn't able to do that. So if any failure is there, I feel is that but it's still not over. I'm still trying now. This might be the right time when the Americans are trying to get India to be on their side. Well, maybe it's time for to do the NATO +6. India will reconsider it. All right. So it's all a matter of timing. Okay. So that's where I've done in terms of India is at the macro level instead of doing businesses myself. I tried that 30 years back. It was a little too early for India, and I lost my shirt on that. But you know, you move on. You know, and but that's basically it, Priya.
So Archish, I think we are over a minute. So is there any more questions that we have?
No, I think we're done with the questions. Thank you so much.
Okay. So I would like to close the panel, and I would like to thank all of you for joining by saying that in the entrepreneurial journey, odds of succeeding are very dim, but most succeed because of their unwavering belief, as Dr. Patel said, persistence, risk-taking ability, and of all, passion to create something unique and impactful. I would like to end our today's wonderful conversation by quoting Peter Drucker: "The best way to predict the future is to create it." Thank you very much for joining.